Tourism is among industries that have been hardest hit by the COVID-19 lockdown. It's only now, under level 2, that the industry is coming back to life. Stats SA figures show that the total income for tourist accommodation decreased by 95.3% in June. This is compared to the same period in 2019. So as the industry improved under level 2, well, Tourism SA's Sisa Njona joins us now to have this conversation. Sisa, thanks a lot for joining us this evening. We know that when it comes to accommodation income, the sector's seen a decrease of about 95.3% in June. So the big question is, how is the industry faring now that recovery is being, expected under level 2 of the lockdown? Are we seeing a significant increase, or are we slowly paddling?
Good evening, Faith. Yes, thank you very much. Absolutely. I think the last 5 months have been quite devastating for the sector. We are also very encouraged that at level 2 we're allowed to operate fully across domestic. However, domestic is the first phase, basically, of a 3-phase: domestic, regional, and ultimately international. So whilst domestic is really great, it's not enough to actually pick up the entire sector. Now, what we've seen, however, is that there's a lot of pent-up demand. So on weekends, especially places that are open, the bush, the beaches, are all really chock-a-block from the perspective. What we're seeing, however, is that there's a gap midweek, city hotels, because there's not much government conferencing or hotels or traveling happening, and also corporates also holding back as well. So we're seeing resurgence, but not quite at the levels that, pre-COVID.
Yeah, I mean, when we look at accommodation spaces, it's been said that since the lockdown was instituted, and then moving from level 4, 3, and then now 2, we're seeing at about a 20%. This is a decrease, and 20% reported losses. Well, many of the actual hotels were operating at about a 20% capacity at max. So that equals to profits. That means that there's not a lot of profits that are coming in when it comes to accommodation and hotels.
Absolutely. Look, it's devastating, not only just to South Africa, but globally as well. We've estimated that the recovery will take anything of 18 to 24 months, essentially. So as we start to open up and ease up the sector, we'll start to see more and more activity pick up. But we can't expect that it's going to happen overnight. There's still a lot of hard work to be done in terms of winning back that demand, basically, in South Africa and also to the rest of the world to come into the country. So it's still going to be tough for the foreseeable future.
I guess it's all about innovation from here on out, isn't it? I mean, how exactly do you attract these local tourists? I mean, before even the regional part comes in and the international travel is actually allowed. But the question is then around, how do you innovate enough so that South Africans, even with a limited budget, Sisa, and I'm saying that quite eloquently because the budget is limited for many South Africans, how is it that they can still enjoy the local scenes?
Like with any other sector, everyone has had to relook at their operating model. You can simply pick up where you left off before COVID. We all have to do things differently. The consumer behavior is changing on a weekly basis, and the sector has to keep up with that as well. And also finding the right equilibrium between supply and demand, looking firstly within the domestic space. So what value proposition can you then pivot around to make sure we deliver that, whilst also maintaining all the time, the utmost health and safety protocols, because that's got to be at the forefront, building that confidence, building the trust that tourism can be consumed in a very safe way, and also as well starting to see, as you said, innovation, digital in terms of technology as well, self-check-in, and removing as much human interaction as possible, or contact basically, to get the safety, and again, the whole concepts of people are able to move and consume tourism safely.
I mean, the sector contributes somewhat over 1.5 million jobs, and that's, look at the 2019 sort of predictions around the tourism sector. Job losses have become the order of the day since the lockdown was instituted, rightfully so, under COVID-19 pandemic. But one wonders exactly, how do you recoup those jobs, and is it salvageable at this point?
Yeah, look, the only sustainable way, basically, to get the sector going is to open it up for trade. That's the only way. Failing that, you almost have to artificially keep it afloat whilst waiting for the right time, to fully allow it to happen. Jobs are the consequence of either the contraction or growth of the sector itself. So essentially, we want to get back on that path that we were on pre-COVID and make sure that we can win as much market share as possible in order to get our sector up and running again. But it's going to be tough, Faith. It's going to be tough in an era of contactless interaction, essentially, right? And, tourism is a very labor-absorptive space. We've got to find the tight balance of being able to do both And I think we'll figure out as we go along, but also looking at what's happening around the world, we can actually make sure that we are also quite competitive in that space.
I mean, it's definitely an uphill road ahead, but one that can be literally won over just with enough innovation and enough willpower there, and hopefully the support of South Africans as they get into the level 2 of the lockdown and enjoy South Africa, especially when it comes to tourism. Let's leave it there, Sisa, for this evening. Sisa Ntshona, who's the CEO for Tourism SA, just giving us an insight in terms of exactly how the sector of industry is faring. This is after level 2 of the lockdown that has been instituted.